This is Tea with Botha.
Yesterday was the 21st of March, which was a day to celebrate the fateful 1960 Sharpeville shooting commemoration. We saw speeches, we had rallies, we had talking about what happened on that fateful day. Today is the 22nd of March. Looking back, the question then is, has that helped us? Those those rallies, the festivities, have they helped us to reach or to embrace our human rights, or were they just empty slogans that people are not able to relate or to resonate with what happened yesterday, 21st of March? A friend of Tea with Botha, and his name is Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane, who is, as I said, not a stranger to us. Is someone who has, for many years, worked with the South African Human Rights Commission, who, also worked in the office of the Chief Justice. He actually was the founder of SAICA. So we are today privileged to welcome him back, and we know a lot about him. So I'm just going to go straight in asking him, Advocate, where we are now in terms of the Chapter 9 institutions. What would you tell us about them? Are they, Chapter 9s? Why do you call them Chapter 9s? Someone who is listening to us, watching, may not have an idea what we mean. What are they all about?
No, thank you and welcome again. Since it's Human Rights Month and we've just celebrated Sharpeville Day, now called the Human Rights Day, and I guess it's a very good opportunity to reflect on where we are almost 30 years plus, since the advent of our democracy. Now, the Chapter 9 bodies were established in order to strengthen and support constitutional democracy. And when we come to human rights, in particular then the South African Human Rights Commission, whose mandate is really to help to promote and protect human rights, create a culture of human rights in our country, and respect for human rights. So, when you then reflect 30 years later and ask yourself, where are we, so many years later, as far as human rights are concerned? One can say, it's not a very good picture and a very sad picture. If you take into account what actually happened in Sharpeville, the Sharpeville massacre, where our people were fighting for human rights. So our country was basically established on that fight and quest for human rights. But 30 years later, when you look at the state of human rights in our country, you really get sad as to what has happened. We have high levels of poverty, high levels of unemployment. We are apparently one of the most unequal countries in the world as far as disparities in terms of wealth, which also take racial lines. We also have high levels of violence and corruption. And all these issues then really point to a very bleak picture of the state of human rights in our country. And so I would basically attribute this sad situation to three factors. One, I would like to blame us as South Africans, as a people, because in Sharpeville, we stood up and fought as South Africans against the very evil system which had no respect for human rights. So the delivery of the democratic order in this country was to a large extent carried by our own people. There was no Human Rights Commission then. So despite the challenges of government, the challenges of these bodies like Chapter 9, what has happened with our people? What has happened to that spirit of fighting for human rights against all odds? And it looks like, after 94, we simply left much of the quest and struggle for human rights to our government and bodies like the Human Rights Commission.
And do you think is there something wrong?
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Because the struggle for human rights, the struggle for democracy is always the struggle of the people. That's why we say democracy is government for the people, by the people, for the people. Because history has shown that we will establish governments, will establish democratic institutions, but they do not always perform. And therefore, it's our responsibility as citizens to remove them and replace them with other vehicles which will best deliver what we want as people. And therefore, the failures of human rights today and the challenges thereof, of course, one can say government did not deliver, Chapter 9 bodies did not deliver, which is a fair response. But then the question is, after 30 years, why then did the people who were so heroic in fighting for human rights in Sharpeville allowed these institutions to fail so dismally without holding them accountable and without replacing them?
How do you hold them accountable? Because these are the institutions that were created by an act of parliament. They are called Chapter 9 because we find them in the Chapter 9 of a constitution. And how do people, is it voting? Is it, how does that happen, which you are, your proposition?
So let's stick with Chapter 9 bodies for the time being. So these bodies are accountable to Parliament.
Yes.
For how they
to the
perform,
National Assembly.
Yeah, to how they perform. But they're also accountable to South Africans, ultimately.
And how so?
Because, we can then put pressure on Parliament to do its work in holding these bodies to account. And if Parliament does not do its work, then Parliament will be in trouble. So the poor performance, as far as human rights is concerned, could then, one could say, well, the Chapter 9s did not deliver, so something should have been done about them. Then two, Parliament or National Assembly, which is supposed to ensure they do their work, was clearly sleeping on the job. But more importantly, then the people who vote Parliament into existence, then also, didn't really put much pressure.
But let me ask you this, Advocate Tseliso. Is it because that the people that are sent to these institutions, and in particular, we talk about the Human Rights Commission, the sixth Chapter 9 institution. I was, by the way, I must make a declaration. I was for 2 terms, for 10 years. I spent as a commissioner at the Commission for Gender Equality. Is it because structurally how people are appointed, or is it because, and what I'm saying, how are they appointed? I'm specifically asking you, is it because these are political appointments? These are people that, and let's face it, these are people that are appointed by the ANC because they would fit in a particular agenda driven by the ANC, or are they appointed because of merit, because of competency, because of capability? What is the problem? When you say this, Advocate Tseliso, where do you locate the problem? If we say that they are not working, and we're saying that 6 of them, it's Chapter 9 institutions, where lies the problem? Well, I have my own views, but I'm interested hosting you for you to share with me. Is it where lies the problem?
Yeah.
Before we even go to people, before we even go to the National Assembly, but to call it what it is, these people were, for the last 30 years, who serve in the institutions, were appointed by the African National Congress because they were leading party. They were the only. By then, we had no GNU.
Yeah. Look, like you, I've also spent over 15 years in the Human Rights Commission.
As the CEO?
I was head of research for 8 years. Then I was the CEO for the first term between 2005 and 2009. Then I came back in 2017 for another 5 years. So I've spent a bulk of my career in the Human Rights Commission. And I think I can basically, express an opinion as to why are we here today. So if you look at the Human Rights Commission over the past 30 years, I mean, in the first 5-10 years, it was a great organization.
The tenure of Professor Bani Pichani?
Under Bani Pichana, and then Judge Kolapin,
who is now the judge of the Constitutional Court.
Yeah. So at that time, the Human Rights Commission was definitely hitting way above its weight. If you recall, there was a parliamentary review led by Professor Karasma.
Are you saying the Karasma report?
Yeah.
That actually suggested or recommended that all the other Chapter 9s are collapsed into the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah. In 2007 or 8, around there, the Human Rights Commission had the public approval of 65%, the highest in the country then. And this was actually a survey done by Parliament itself. And even Parliament unanimously, that committee of Karasma said the Human Rights Commission is a true defender of human rights, a leading example of how human rights institutions should work. And as a result of that, I mean, the commission was, being called all over the world to share with the world what has been done to make institution quite successful. I mean, I joined the commission when there was nothing. I came there with my computer in 1996. We built the institution to that level. And then afterwards, then things began collapsing.
The wheels came off.
Yeah, the wheels came off.
And then where and why and where did they come off?
Well, when you assess an impact of an institution, as they say, leadership matters. So institutions can come and go. Institutions can be effective or not effective, depending on a number of factors. But largely, it's the quality and ability of these leaders, the vision they have. And very clearly that, under Bani Pichana and Karasma, there was a very good vision. And that's why then the commission did so well globally. We helped to set up the global network of human rights commissions as well in Africa. I remember in 2007, I went to Harvard. We invited there, and we assessed amongst over 100 human rights commissions all over the world, and we came tops. The following year, we were also rated tops in Africa. And in 2008, there was actually a survey done by government here. We came number 3 as the best state organ which uses legal powers to give effect. We came
enforce.
Yeah, we came after the South African Bureau of Standards and CCMA. That's where we were.
And these are what your Chapter 10 but not Chapter 9
statutory bodies,
Yeah.
But we're rated by government, not ourselves. The parliamentary one was by government. So today, when you look at where the commission is, I mean, December last year, there was a survey done by an NGO in Cape Town. The SABC, interestingly, was rated as the most trusted public body at 55%.
Not because you are a board member.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, sure. Not because. But you're not thumbing this, eh?
No, it's actually stated. It's an NGO which has these issues.
Okay.
And then the Human Rights Commission did not even appear. Public Protect was at 30%.
And the CGE, I've got interest. That's why I said.
Way below that as well.
And the Public Protector?
Public Protector was at 30%.
30%.
Yeah, it's gone all the way down. So if the public saying, we, at this point in time, we have no confidence in these bodies. We are the only body as SABC which got over 50%.
Yeah. And
public approval. The rest went below 50%.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
So it actually shows you that the public has lost confidence in these bodies because of what has been happening. So if you look at then from in 2007, the commission was rated by Parliament at 65% public approval. In 2005, we are below 30%. That's a serious drop. And these are not the studies of the commission. These are public studies, public perceptions. So you might, give a little bit of a pinch of salt there. But
you said because of what has happened. What has happened?
well, as I was saying, the institutions gain public trust and confidence in how they execute their mandate. And so in the first two terms of the Human Rights Commission, clearly we're doing quite well. That's why the public had trust in us. You could also look at the number of complaints which were coming to the public, to the bodies. I mean, when I left the commission in 2009, we're getting about 12,000 complaints a year. When I came back in 2017, it had gone down to 5,000. If you look at the last annual reports, they're now at 6,000. So already you can see that's
the reports that they're receiving.
Complaints from the public.
Complaints, yeah.
So if the public don't come to you, it means they don't have confidence in you because they don't believe that you can do anything for them. I don't even know how many complaints the CG gets. But
well, I wouldn't know. I've not been there for some time.
You see, that will be one indicator, isn't it? When you assess the performance of a public institution, one indicator will be to what extent does the public have confidence in that institution. In government, we know exactly what that confidence means. It means that you won't get votes in the next elections, like it has happened to the ANC, all the way from 67% to 40%. It might even go down. So that's a good indicator of your performance as an institution. Give or take one or two things. But clearly, just relying on those indicators, there has been a decline in public confidence in Chapter 9 bodies, like the Human Rights Commission in particular.
Yeah.
So the issue is why? The issue is because, clearly with the high levels of challenges around human rights issues, it means then a body which was there to fight for human rights is not doing its work. If increasingly since 1994, when we thought things would be getting better as far as human rights are concerned, they're getting worse. The level of poverty has gone up. The level of unemployment has gone up. Violence is going up. Corruption is going up. So then the question is, where is the Human Rights Commission? Of course, you can't blame the Human Rights Commission alone. But clearly, it is one of the main players as far as advancing human rights. That's why it was established for that. So why was it doing better between the first 10 years and as opposed to its last 10 years? What is the issue? So, of course, it requires a scientific analysis, but I mean, this is our field, so we know. As I was saying, one, of course, is the public confidence. And two, then, is the nature of work, which is being done by those bodies. But ultimately, if your mandate is to advance human rights, and 30 years later, there is a massive drop in the protection of human rights, then you can't avoid, fingers pointing at you to say, what happened?
Yeah.
You are supposed to bake bread. There's no bread. What happened as a chef?
Yeah. So you were part in 1998 of, what is called the Action Plan for Human Rights. You are part of it. Has that helped in shaping it, or it has not helped?
The National Action Plan for Human Rights did not even really get proper implementation. It's sad that I flew to New York to hand over what was regarded as one of the best human rights action plans under Mandela's government. And unfortunately, it was never really fully implemented, and it was never continued. So as we speak, there is no National Human Rights Action Plan. So remember, as I was saying, from Sharpeville. So in 1994, this country was holding itself as a country which will fight and advance human rights globally. We did so many things. If you recall,
well, it was used as a benchmark.
Yes, because of our own struggle for human rights. Remember, we've been fighting for human rights for a long time as a people, with or without government, with or without the Human Rights Commission. So Sharpeville was a very clear example of that determination, of that culture and willingness of South Africans to fight for human rights, including dying for human rights, like they did in Sharpeville, like Soweto 76. So we're always being regarded as a people who fight for human rights. So in 1994, we set up all these beautiful institutions.
And by the way, our constitution, when it was signed in 1996,
Yeah.
was actually signed in Sharpeville.
And I was there. And it was still seen as one of the best human rights. So basically, South Africa was leading globally. We even hosted, remember, in the World Conference on Racism in Durban?
Were you part of that?
I was there as well. I was organizing dialogues there. We did so many things. We pushed for the drafting and ratification of the Rome Statute for establishing the International Criminal Court. We played a major role. Without South Africa,
the ICC.
Yeah, without South Africa, that instrument would not have been signed. We pushed for it as part of our determination that
Were we punching above our weight or within our weight?
It was a continuation of that fighting spirit, which we've had long. I mean, if you recall, I mean, the struggle against colonization from 1652 was a human rights struggle. The Bambata Rebellion in 1908 was a human rights struggle. The formation of the ANC in 1912 was a human struggle. Sharpeville and many, many others. So we were a people who were known as human rights defenders, human rights champions. If you look at the Freedom Charter, minus all the issues about land, it's a human rights instrument. The last clause,
the 1955 document.
Yeah. The last clause of the Freedom Charter says, we will fight for a better global order side by side with everybody else. That's who we are. That was our culture as South Africans. When you look at South Africans, you knew these were human rights fighters. We're known all over the world as people who fight for human rights against all odds.
And Tseliso, having you said that, are there obstacles? I mean, these are watchdogs. I mean, I've said to you, they are. In fact, let's count them, the Chapter 9 institutions. In fact, we need to demystify. And as I said, they are called Chapter 9s because they are found in the Chapter 9 of our Constitution. And
they've been established to strengthen
and protect this democracy.
Constitutional democracy, yes. Which
and
is basically a human rights.
Protect, support, and deepen.
And create a culture of human rights. Now, remember, the foundation of any democracy is human rights. If there is no quest for human rights, there's no democracy. So,
and are there obstacles to this?
There are obstacles.
What are those obstacles?
As I was saying, for me, sadly, our people sort of put so much trust in the post-94 dispensation.
They outsource their power.
Yeah. Government, Chapter 9s and whatever. And we kept on hoping against all odds that things will change. But nothing has changed. In fact, things have gone worse as far as human rights are concerned. Nobody can argue that since 1994, up until where we are today, our indicators as far as human rights are concerned are going backwards. I've said before, poverty, unemployment. You look at the poverty rates in 1998 and now, unemployment, violence, it's all going backwards. There is nothing positive as far as the key human rights indicators are concerned. Now, I'll give you another example, of the Human Rights Commission. We played a major role in the enactment of PEPUDA, the promotion of the prevention of unfair discrimination.
That's the act that people like Akrisi from Busasa was taken to court.
Yeah.
That's the act.
Yeah.
Now, say more about PEPUDA so that someone listening to us, what is, make it simple, Tseliso.
So remember in the Constitution, we said we will pass 3 acts to advance the human rights struggle.
3 acts.
3 acts. Equality Act, to address issues of racism and disability, and discrimination. Yeah?
That's
Then-
equality, disability, and discrimination.
Racism and discrimination.
Oh, that's the first one is equality. Is that equality
Yes.
or racism?
So it's called the promotion of equality.
Promotion
that all
of
human beings must enjoy all human rights equally.
The same as
Women-
the document
Yeah.
1948,
yeah,
the Declaration of Human
Yeah.
Rights.
women, gender, and everything else. And that's why,
LGBTIQ.
and that's why, in the first 10 years, South Africa was seen as a serious promoter of equality. We made sure that there is a better representation in parliament, that we're more represented in terms of race and gender, and we're still doing relatively well in that regard. We passed the Employment Equity Act and all those things. Then the second act was the PAJA, Promotion of Just Administration Act.
So that we're setting, this is the first one is PEPUDA.
Yeah, these are constitutional acts.
Yeah.
These are acts which are mentioned in the Constitution that they must be passed in order to consolidate our democracy and human rights. So PAJA is basically is about
What?
PAJA,
PAJA.
Promotion of Just Administration Act, that those who exercise public power must do so in a manner which is in line with the Constitution. Because remember, under the Constitution, it is a right, the right of fair administrative justice, that government must exercise power in a proper manner, in a fair and reasonable manner. It is a human right.
Give me an example of what would PAJA be about.
Like if I decide not to give you a passport,
You decide
not to give you a passport, without
not to
any
give
reasons.
it, you go to Home Affairs,
Yeah.
and Home Affairs,
Yeah. Then they say, we're not going to help you. So it's really about that those who are exercising public power must do so in furtherance of human rights, in a non-discriminatory manner, in a fair and rational manner. Okay? The third act was the promotion of access to information.
or the PAIA.
Yeah. That all information in government belongs to the people of South Africa.
In fact, when you say this, when you say PAIA, now as we speak, there are people who are threatening that the Pala report,
Yes.
which has been just recently declassified by IPID, that it must be made accessible. And
Yes.
the police minister said it's declassified, but it's not a public knowledge. But there are people such as the political party, I think ATM is going to court to, in fact, to say that we want that the declassified IPID report on Palapala to be made public.
Yes. So the principle behind the PAIA Act is that flowing from the principle of democracy, government for the people, by the people, for the people, that governments are only created to advance human rights. And that is their sole purpose. So it is a human right to have access to information.
So someone who is in Nkanduli as we speak, how do you simplify this? This person is watching, is drinking tea with us, and does not have an idea. But Advocate Tseliso talks about PAIA. What is it? How does this Magogo in Nkanduli makes it, or Msinga makes it, a live document?
The principle is that, since democracy means government for the people, by the people, for the people, of the people, that any information in the hands of a government belongs to citizens. They have a right to it, except where that access will cause harm to them and to the country. But
or whether it relates to state security.
Yeah, but otherwise, all government information belongs to us as citizens, and we're entitled to it when we want it, except for those limitations. So that's why these three acts are very important. That, you then need to know what your government is doing, what your council is doing, what the Human Rights Commission is doing, so that you can then be able to exercise your right as a citizen to hold your government to account, because it's your taxes which is running this government. It's your vote which puts it in power. Therefore, government is accountable to you. If South Africa was a company, we will say, citizens are shareholders of Company South Africa, and they have the right. It's their company. It does not belong to a ruling party or a chair of the Human Rights Commission. It belongs to them. So government and Chapter 9's institutions, they belong to the people of this country. They are accountable to them. They have to account as to how they exercise their powers. And if they're not doing their job, they must just be given a yellow card or red card. That is a principle of democracy. It's a principle of law. It's a principle of human rights. Now, what happened then in 94, going up to now, there's definitely been things have turned upside down. One is that the people no longer have a clear understanding and appreciation that government and all institutions belongs to them, and that government is accountable to them. They've sort of, see themselves now as beneficiaries.
And who are those?
The people.
Is it because they are disempowered, or is it because they've lost interest, or is it because the government itself is an enabler in making sure that people remain ignorant of all these rights?
Those who we put into government captured the state from the people itself.
What do you mean by that?
Remember, governments are created by the people and they're accountable to people. However, those we put in power decided to turn this thing upside down, that they are now in charge of our country, our resources. They can do whatever they want. And then they're doing us a favor to governors. So there's been a terrible revolution, if one might call it like that. As I'm saying, Sharpeville, 1960, our people are fighting. Today, it's like they are scared to hold government to account. They feel the government now treats them like you are doing a favor. You go to any government department, the service you get there as a citizen is not a service given by someone who feels accountable to you.
Or the Batupili principle.
It's the other way around. They can do whatever they want.
So they're not there to save.
Yeah. So this change was gradual, And that's why I'm saying then what happened to the fighting spirit of 76, Sharpeville, 1912, and so forth.
You seem to be blaming people and not gravitating towards holding government accountable. I mean, these institutions were created, Tseliso, with the express purpose of holding government accountable. But you seem to, am I right?
Yeah.
Do I understand you, or you're not? Or
I am to a large extent, because you see, we can have government. We can have Chapter 9s. If they do whatever they want without anyone holding them to account, you get what we're having now. So who holds government to account? Who holds Chapter 9s to account if they're not performing? So what we're seeing now is that it's actually a very terrible situation. Let's take the last national elections in 2024. I'm sure you're aware that less than 50% of South Africans who are eligible to vote voted.
Less than
50%.
And what would you ascribe that? Is it because the people have no confidence in the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission, which is also part of the Chapter 9? Or is it people are saying, you know what? What's the point? Well, there's no value. I mean, as well, this voting there will not bring anything, will not change. Yeah. Because there's also people who also think about the Constitution in the same line. There's a young woman many years ago who said to us at the Constitutional Hill, we were there, we said, look, will this Constitution save me from being raped?
Well, it's very clear. They have lost confidence and trust in the government. And the stats show that. That's why we have over 10 million South Africans, 9 million South Africans who did not vote, even though they're eligible to vote. Why are they not voting? When we say democracy is government for the people, by the people, of the people. So it means those 10 million people who don't even care about holding government to account will not bother to hold Chapter 9 to account. So that is the biggest tragedy we have had. But now you say, I'm not blaming the people for that tragedy. Is the people misplace their trust in the government they elected. And slowly but surely...
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
The ANC has been the ruling party for the last 32 years.
Sure. Whoever they voted. So slowly...
Are you avoiding to say...
No. I agree with
you say whoever, but there's no whoever. They voted for the ANC.
The ANC has been in power for the last 30 years. I agree with you. So what happened is this. I mean, one interview which I used to like was that of Chris Hani, just before he died. He said something very powerful, that the mistake the ANC made during the armed struggle was to make our people look up to the ANC as their liberators and not themselves as their liberators. And so again, what we then did, as far as human rights are concerned, now this is my own phrase now, that what we have successfully done since 1994 is to make our people look to government in Chapter 9s as the protectors of human rights and not themselves. And then when they mess up, we can't do anything. It's our country, which we fought for and died for. And yet we are putting the human rights, the destiny of human rights in other people, government in Chapter 9s. And yet, now 30 years later, human rights have fallen apart.
But who do not count what civil society has done? And I'm talking about, Section 27. I'm thinking about Michael Komape, who died, in the latrine. Section 27 went to court, to the court. And I'm just saying that, remember, even before then, you have, during the President Thabo Mbeki's era, and probably speaks to what you're saying, but I want to take it further and say, but you have civil society that has stood up. And by the way, what constitutes civil society are people. You had, Saki Ahmad, they took government to court on ARVs and what. So there has been
pockets.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people have not folded their arms.
I'm part of the whistleblower movement. We're fighting against corruption.
The ATM,
yeah. We're fighting against corruption, protection of whistleblowers. But those are small pockets.
Important pockets.
Yeah, in the bigger picture. You see? And so I'm saying then, that the demand for accountability for human rights can best be realized when there is a sufficient pull factor by the citizens.
The groundswell.
Yeah. So that, if you are in government or in Chapter 9, if you don't work, your days are numbered. That's accountability. But over the last 30 years, we have created a culture where we feel we don't owe the public any accountability.
You mean the Chapter 9s? And
those who are in power.
Those
who are in power.
Yeah.
From your ordinary official in Home Affairs, in police station, you go to a police station, go to a hospital, you're supposed to get service. They don't care about you. Where does the culture come from? Because there is no fear of anything happening to us. We don't fix potholes, we don't make sure there's water, housing recently, because nobody can hold us to account. We are the masters. So basically, we have usurped. Those in government and Chapter 9s or government in all its organs have usurped the power of the public.
Which brings me to, for some time, by the way, you worked within the office of the Chief Justice. How many months was it?
20 months.
20 months.
Yeah.
What happens, Tseliso, now that you're talking about this, what happens when, the courts, they are certain rulings that have been made and government does not implement them?
Because it's that culture of impunity. We don't care. So we have the same problem in our country today, where government ignores court orders and nothing happens. And we've been helping the case of Thuso Bloom, the whistleblower.
Thuso Bloom, what happened?
In Taung. Thuso Bloom was fired unlawfully by Greater Taung municipality.
Was he not with the TVET or something?
He was a whistleblower.
Okay.
And then For 12 years, he was at home.
Mm.
Then he got a court order last year,
Court order, yes.
Gauteng, Pretoria High Court, Gauteng, that he must be reinstated and the municipality must pay back his remuneration for the past 12 years. It took 3 months before he's reinstated. But as we're speaking now, he's not been paid a single cent of the back pay. So the municipality can simply ignore a court order. And so the first example, there are many examples like this, where the executive branch of government just ignores court orders.
And what has ACM done about it? That you're part of it?
People are raising noise, trying to find money to get to court. It's another problem, you see. But the issue is this, that today we have the executive branch of government, which can ignore court orders.
And nothing happens to it.
And nothing happens. So in the same manner, you can have a government ignoring the recommendations and findings of Chapter 9, and nothing happens.
But hold on, is it not look, because look, during the presidency of President Jacob Zuma, I mean, the EFF went to the Constitutional Court about the Nkandla matter, and the human rights were given powers.
Chapter 9, public protector.
Well, just
to make binding decisions.
Yeah, public protector, because I don't think it applies to IEC, to the CGE.
There's a court case now by the Court where Human Rights Commission wants the same powers as public protector.
Yes.
But let's take public protector. Despite that judgment, as we speak now, I'll be very modest. Probably only 50% of the findings of the public protector are effected.
But who do you blame then? Because the public protector has in her possession, has an instrument to enforce.
So why are they not doing so?
I'm asking you,
the court,
who do you blame?
The court says, because Concord said, the finding of the public protector is binding.
They're enforceable, yeah.
It must be implemented. Failing which, there's contempt of court.
And people must be arrested.
Yeah, but now, despite that judgment of the Constitutional Court, Mogoeng, as we speak today, probably only 55% of the decisions of the public protector are respected, despite the judgment of the court.
Who do you blame, Tseliso?
Many parties. You can blame the public protector itself, but also government. Why would you as government not give effect to a binding decision of the public protector when the Constitutional Court has said so? Why would you ignore Section 181 of the Constitution, which says government must respect the dignity of Chapter 9 and respect the recommendations and findings? So it's a culture of impunity. So we go back to Thuso Bloom. Thuso Bloom's case was actually a finding of the public protector. It was never implemented, that he must be reinstated. He had to go to court himself. So now look at this. You have a binding decision of the public protector after that Mogoeng judgment coming out in 2018. It gets ignored by government. Okay? Then fast forward 2025. Thuso Bloom takes that binding decision to court. The court says, fine, we endorse the decision of the public protector. Public protector report must be respected by local government. As we speak, nothing has happened.
Which municipality was that? Which local government was
Greater
that?
Taung.
Greater Taung.
So we've ignored a binding report of the public protector. We have ignored a high court order of Pretoria, the highest court, one of the biggest provincial high courts in the country. How Pretoria? We ignore it. Nothing happens. So now Thuso Bloom must then go to court again for the third time to say, please. So this shows a high degree of impunity and lack of accountability. And they do it because nothing happens to them. It's not the only one. Now, let's go back to the Equality Act, which is very painful for me, that the Constitutional Court, our Constitution said we must pass Equality Act, which was done in 1990 to promote equality, fight unfair discrimination, fight racism, protect gender disability rights, whatever. It's now 2026. 25 years. As we speak, that act is not yet in full operation. The act provided for establishment of equality courts, where South Africans can just go to court without paying to say, I'm a victim of human rights violations, please help me.
Which would make courts accessible.
But where are the equality courts today? If you look at the reports of Justice Department, how many equality courts are there? How many cases do they hear every year? And yet, as we speak now, we are the most unequal society in the world. We have high levels of discrimination.
And if you create, and you're saying, if you create your equality court for free, it means that accessibility then becomes available to every Dick, Tom, Harry, or Salamina.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen because you didn't bring the promotional aspects of the act into operation. You don't see adverts that we have equality courts. Please come. If I've been discriminated, come. We'll give you free access.
Whose responsibility is it to do that?
Parliament, the executive, Chapter 9, the Human Rights Commission, and the public themselves.
Well, which brings me to something. You also serve. Interesting. Your life and the work you do. Whistleblowers, Chief Justice Office, Human Rights Commission. Now you serve. How many years?
Academia.
Yeah. How many years have you been with the as a board member of the South African Broadcasting Corporation?
3 years.
SABC. 3 years.
Yeah.
Who do you agree with the assertion that it is the SABC that has a responsibility to educate, to popularize all of this? What you and I are talking about. I mean, this is a small drinking tea with water. I mean, imagine what would happen if Joe Soap, the mother I spoke to about in Mkanduli, was able to listen to Umhlobo Wenene.
Look, the SABC currently, its footprint extends to about 30 million South Africans a week.
30 million?
Yeah, a week. So it's a very powerful,
South Africans. Yeah, it's a powerful
powerful tool to raise awareness about everything, to provide information for the people to hold government to account. But unfortunately, due to the level of impunity, where basically we are usurping the powers of the public to know and to act, the SABC is completely underfunded. When we got there, 2023, we're running at a loss of 1 billion. Only 20% of South Africans pay their TV licenses, so we don't have enough money to carry out our public mandate. We've been crying to government to say, please fund the SABC public mandate. Now you have to ask yourself a question: why is government not funding SABC to do that public mandate?
Is it not because there are some, when you talk about this, the present Minister of Communication, Mr. Solly Malatsi, has come up with an act. Apparently, there is some problems there.
He found the act there.
Yeah. But then he wants to implement it. But the Portfolio Committee on Communication, according to him, is serving as a stumbling block. But you are better placed
to answer this. We found the act there. Nothing has happened to
you also found the act there. What does the act, how the act enable the SABC?
The act, basically, the SABC wants a different funding model because the current funding model is not working.
Does the SABC want me and you to actually, as we pay our taxes, that there is a certain percentage that we pay that goes to the SABC?
Well, that's one of the options. But ultimately, what SABC wants is that give us enough money to be able to carry out the public mandate, to educate and empower South Africans to be able to hold the government and Chapter 9 accountable. Unfortunately, due to problems which were self-created, the public lost confidence in the SABC. That's why South Africans are refusing to pay their TV licenses. Only 20% of South Africans are paying their TV licenses.
Well, because the argument is that there's no value.
Yeah.
People argue. Yeah.
Yes, but now the issue is, as a citizen, why would you kill a goose which lays golden eggs?
In this instance, who lays the golden eggs?
The SABC. It provides a platform for South Africans to know what's happening in the country and be able to hold to account those in power. It could run a feature about potholes in the municipality, about lack of water, about the challenge of the Human Rights Commission, Chapter 9, Parliament. that is his mandate to empower, to inform, and to
So you're saying that it's not able to do this mandate,
can't.
like popularizing your human rights and what is the board doing about it? Because it fits in
Well, what the
neatly.
board is, we've been fighting to say, please address these issues, because this is not just about generations. It's about empowering the people.
You mean the
SABC,
not the generations, the legacy,
SOP, yeah.
the legacy, yeah.
SABC is not just a SOP platform. It's about empowering South Africans,
Educating South Africa.
to be able to hold their government and any public body to account. But if the public is not empowered, then the public will not hold anybody to account. And this has been the tragedy in this country for the last 30 years. Our public has not been able to adequately hold anybody to account. That's why in the hospital, you'll find all things happening there. Local government is collapsing because these guys know.
Well, recently, the MEC of Health in Gauteng has said that some people want to sleep on the floors.
Yeah. So you see children here.
And the premier, Gauteng, Panyaza, had said that, look, I'm not the only one. I'm also affected.
Yeah.
But look at what privilege does.
Yeah.
I go to the nearest hotel to take a shower.
I mean, I was shocked. Look at the report recently that there are still about 200 schools in our country
still using
pit latrines.
30
years later.
When Kobape has died.
Yeah, 30 years later. So who is to be held accountable? And why no one has been held to account? There are potholes. In our cities, almost at every traffic light, you'll see children begging on the corners there, being used by their parents. Nobody cares. Something is even worse. You see Nyaupe boys controlling traffic. So what does it say about accountability and holding anybody to account? So this has been the tragedy. When you talk about human rights, the tragedy of human rights today in our country, that a people which fought so hard for human rights against the apartheid government just seem to switch off and allow other people to do things. We complain about the high levels of illegal migrants in our country. It is a problem. And we're not being xenophobic. We are saying those who are lawfully in the country, those who are in the country should come lawfully. And those who are not, government must deal with. But our borders are porous. It's creating lots of problems. And then the sad thing is that South Africans are now beginning to fight those people instead of fighting government. To say, government, do your work. As part of our sovereignty in the Constitution, South Africans have the right to national sovereignty and territory. But if our borders are porous, people come in, they commit crimes here. Not all of them. Now, how do you explain that? And we've heard now recently of the reports by SIU that officials in Home Affairs have been selling passports, IDs to foreigners. Now, how does it happen? It happens because people know that there is a high level of impunity. Nothing will happen to them. That's why we have high levels of corruption in our country. People steal anything, Look at the issue of infrastructure, how people steal our copper, everything. It happens. You come from Soweto. How many?
No, Sharpeville.
Yeah, but you've been to Soweto. How many of the railway stations?
How many?
Railway stations on the line. The
train. There were many. I mean, from Vereeniging to Johannesburg.
But how many of those stations now
that are working?
Yeah. What happened?
There's been stolen.
Who is to account for that? And how do people just steal and get away with it? So it is a high level of impunity. And that's why people are staying away. So going back then to the issue of the Chapter 9, then it will be difficult to expect Chapter 9s to function effectively where there is such a high level of impunity. It will be difficult to expect the courts to also function effectively when there's that high level of impunity, when people don't even ignore court order. So you go to court now, you get your order, you've been there, and then you get your court order, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Your own case. I mean, you go to court, it takes you a year before
Even more than a year.
So that's a level of impunity. So South Africans are beginning to switch off. And for me, that's actually what is scaring me. As South African, that, because there can be no democracy, no advancement of human rights without the third player, the citizens.
Okay, I hear you. So, and which brings me to, the Safer South Africa Foundation that you were part of.
Yeah.
What was it all about? Because it links to, but share with us, what was it all about?
Okay. The Safer South Africa Foundation, the one I worked for under Popcorn, was trying to really help government to create a safe environment, reduce violence and crime in schools. So we'll take school children to prisons, police stations, and show them the consequence of crime and the importance for all of us, to help to fight crime, because crime is one of the biggest violators of human rights. But unfortunately, we still hear reports year after year of massive violations of human rights in schools. Teachers raping learners, assaults. It's crazy. I mean, you have teenage pregnancy. I saw a report last week, over 100,000 girls between the age of 10 and 18 get pregnant every year. If a child who's 10, 12 gets pregnant, is that not rape?
Well, that's the statutory rape.
So how come the stats are going higher and higher?
And in that instance, who do you blame?
Many factors. I'll start with the Minister of Basic Education. That if your teachers are committing this type of human rights violations, there has to be consequences. But clearly, there's impunity, and you know where it comes from.
You have SAIDs there.
Yeah, and you've got the unions there. So basically, it's just impunity. Assaults happen in schools, and of course, then our children also emulate the behavior.
But also parents would be in cahoots, because there are instances from when you listen, or hear from, if you work with the South African, this regulatory board of sake of teachers, they will tell you that, look, parents together with the teachers, they would make an agreement that, you know what, we will actually, to cleanse this child, we will give you 10,000, or we'll give you 2 goats. Slaughter them, appease the ancestors.
But with due respect, in fairness, it's not even 10% of the cases where there are.
So it's minuscule.
The bigger issue is that there's just impunity. Nothing happens to them. Of course, SAIC will try and dismiss a few. But the point is this: why would a teacher? Remember, I was also in the child rights movement. We put section 28 that the best interest of a child in this country override any other interest. But look at how we're treating our children today. Look at the problems in us. Yeah, people have to go and strike to get money to schools. Many schools don't have proper facilities. As I was saying, piddly things. So for a people who said we will put the best interests of children in our country, who are the future leaders of our country, as paramount, and yet today, how we treat children, homeless children in the streets, Yaope, children getting pregnant, no schools. So it shows that people who don't really care about children. And yet these are the people who in 76 helped to bring our democracy. And that's why we put it, and by the way, we are known also, again, as advancing child rights. So June 76, was seen as a major global movement,
was a catalyst,
which actually inspired the movement of child rights in the world.
In fact, there are people who say that these 2 events, Sharpeville shooting 1960 and Soweto, by the way, this coming on the 16th of June, it will be 50 years. There are people who say that these were 2 historical events that changed the course of history in South Africa.
The world.
Yeah, and the world. South Africa was, in fact, apartheid and what was actually put in the map, to say that.
So the issue is this, as we began earlier on, what happened to that fighting spirit? Which then led to the inefficiencies and failures of chapter 9s, failures of government and our people. I'll tell you what, when I was at the Human Rights Commission, I'll tell people, I said, listen, guys, you as a public, you are our shareholders. You have to hold us to account.
Or you must stakeholders.
Yeah. Don't be scared of us. We are your servants. But today, the majority of South Africans see government officials as the big bosses. And they drive in blue lights, they throw their weight around.
They say, when a minister comes in, you must all stand up.
Yeah, you see. What nonsense is this? It's actually contrary to the principles of democracy. Those people in government are here to serve. They must be humble and they must, what's the word now? Be responsive. Look at section 1 of our constitution. Accountability and responsiveness. Those are our funding values. So why today people in government or chapter 9s don't see themselves having to be held accountable?
In fact,
being responsive.
Yeah. In fact, when you talk about this, you wrote a piece on you can't eat the Constitution.
Yes.
And the question is then that comes in, why should poor people always told that be patient, we're fixing this water, we're doing all of this? Are you also going to blame them when in fact people, and maybe you could explain, when you wrote you can't eat the Constitution, I gave an example of a meeting I attended where a young woman said that, look, I live in this country which does not respect me as a woman, that if I go out here, chances of me being violated sexually are high. And you expect me to respect this Constitution, which will not prevent me being violated sexually. You wrote a piece on you can't eat the...
Yeah, let's start with that. As we speak today, 23% of South Africa's children are food insecure. 23%. And most of them are black.
When you say food insecure,
they go without food. They probably only have one meal or even less. We have high levels of malnutrition and other food-related challenges in our country. Look at the stats. So that's why then we have the school feeding programs, which people then loot. Yeah? But as we speak now, many South Africans don't have adequate food. And the right to food is a human right. So
that right to have shelter.
Yeah. So those people who don't have food and they're promised food, they can't eat the Constitution. I think that was the context in which we were trying to raise. And now remember also now, South Africa also played a major role. We were one of the first countries in the world, actually, to make socioeconomic rights justiciable. I remember there were many fights. You guys are mad. Socioeconomic rights cannot be enforceable. Blah. We said, we'll show you. We will enforce socioeconomic rights because they're part of human rights. So if we have a constitution which says children should have access to school, health, food, nutrition, social security, and 30 years later, those rights are not being realized, what does the constitution mean to them? Number one. Number two, what is government, which is being paid with our taxes, doing to realize those rights? What are Chapter 9s doing to make sure that government delivers on its mandate? What went wrong? Now, forget about those who are hungry. What about us who are able to put pressure on government? Why are we not putting pressure on government? We wait for the next elections. So we are also failing as South Africans who have the means.
But is that not the only vehicle, when Tseliso, where you could right these wrongs that you're talking about? You are not obviously propagating the violent overthrow of government, because the one instrument that people have is to change your government peacefully in a peaceful, democratic, parliamentary way. You are not sitting here propagating that, look, if you're not satisfied, go and take arms and take them and fight and go the revolutionary way. You are not suggesting
we're not saying that. However, we should also be frank about it. If we don't find peaceful ways of bringing about change, the people will find other ways of finding change. And that will be violent, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you and I must be responsible and promote this.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that we have a responsibility as citizens. It's our government. We need to hold it to account. And we, for a number of reasons, we slept on the job.
Well, you would say that, agree with me that the only viable is you have a potent weapon in your hand, which is your vote.
Yeah, but now
That the 10 million you spoke
the
about.
problem is that now people are not voting.
Yeah, is it not the duty of one of the chapter 9s, which is the IEC,
Yeah.
the Independent Electoral Commission, to ensure that it has a budget, by the way,
and the,
that would,
and the SABC?
yeah, but you said that
Yeah.
SABC
No,
is limping financially.
The duty, and let's make the distinction between the duty and the means. SABC has a duty,
but there's no means
to inform. IEC also has a duty to inform.
And it has a means, there's a budget, yeah.
I don't know, maybe not enough.
So looking back, I mean, you have traveled the world. You have lectured. Columbia University, you lectured law there.
Yeah.
And is it University of New York?
Ramapo College of Education.
Is that
in New Jersey? I taught
New Jersey.
I taught African politics and human rights.
If you were to grade South African human rights report, would you give it a pass, or what would be? What would be your
today or then?
Today, as we speak now. Yeah. I mean, we've just celebrated 21st March yesterday. What would you? How would you grade? Yeah. Would you say it's dismal? Would you say it's pathetic? What would be? Would you? What would you? How would you grade it?
Well, look, if the people have already spoken by saying we don't have confidence in this body, 30%, less than 30%, from 65%, that should be a good indicator. Number one. Number two, if you then look at the low levels of respect for human rights in our country, clearly something has gone wrong there. So I would say, in a bigger scheme of things, the Human Rights Commission has failed to deliver on its mandate. And it's still failing due to the high human rights challenges we have. It might give its own reasons as to why, but as an outsider, it is clearly failing to live to its mandate, as opposed to what it was doing at the beginning. And of course, there has to be, if we really want to move forward, we need to go back to the drawing boards and ask ourselves, if we were a human rights society, leading by examples, being held in high regard, getting awards after awards, what went wrong 30 years later? And what needs to be done to address that?
Well, which leads me to say that here's a government official listening to you and I as we're drinking tea, and this person knows that you spoke a lot about impunity. Is there a legal instrument that this government servant who is not fulfilling, as a duty bearer who's not fulfilling his or her duty, is there an instrument legally that would say could force her, would force him?
There are many, but actually, let me start with the police. At least now we know, following Madlanga Commission and Adult Committee, the mess in the police. This is a body which gets over 90 billion rands a year to effect human rights, to protect us from violence. But you can see there's been a high level of impunity in that important agency of government. That's why we have the highest levels of gender-based violence in the world and crime. So if you are a police officer in South African Police Service and your mandate is to protect citizens of this country and you are paid for it and you don't do it, why? It's very simple. Why is because, as we know now, the generals are all corrupt, the ministers,
they're all in the pockets of criminals.
So there's a culture of impunity. You don't care. We had our first Black National Commissioner, Jackie Selebi, being convicted of working with drug traffickers. Then we have General Patlana, who is also being charged. We have, SAB, South African police has been seriously a concern. And remember, in the democracy, your police are the most important human rights body, not the Human Rights Commission. The most important, the front line of human rights defense and protection. So if the police fail so dismally, then what do you expect from the rest of everybody else? Now, why did the police fail? It means a couple of things. One, it means the political authority, the minister himself or herself, did not hold the police to account. The president did not hold the minister to account. Parliament did not hold the president and minister to account. And we as taxpayers simply say, they're corrupt. So what do? We go to private security. The private security industry is one of the fastest growing industries in our country. So instead of solving the problem, we find other solutions. And the police keep on getting from bad to worse. Any public servant has to sign a performance contract, and you get assessed on what you're doing. Yeah? But we know what happens. Nothing much happens there. The head of the department also gets assessed and then appears in Parliament to give a report to say, this is what we've been doing, your annual report, your annual performance plans. So why this failing reports? Look at the reports of the AG. Year after year, poor audits. But people appear before the relevant portfolio committees and, get away with it. We've never really had anyone of significance being fired for not doing their work. Not corruption, but just failing to perform. Isn't it? They say, make a cake, you don't make the cake, then you must go. So that also then created an element of impunity. You get away for the last 30 years. We blame other forces when there's no performance. So there are instruments which hold everybody from a low public servant to account. But the systems, are they being used? No, they get corrupted. You appear in Parliament. How many government departments appear in Parliament with disclaimers? What happens to them?
Well, recently now, the public...
First one.
Well, recently now, I'm just saying,
The
recently
AG.
now,
Yeah.
the AG, I mean, there's an act of Parliament that if the municipal manager, he or she has to pay from his pocket, and which did not exist, that the AG now has powers.
A debit order. Fund. But now, I'm not talking about financial misconduct. I'm talking about performance. If you're not performing, you don't deliver schools, you don't deliver hospitals, you don't deliver water, who gets punished for failing to deliver? In the private sector, if you don't meet you don't build enough cars, they'll fire you. The shareholders will fire you. So in the corporate world, we talk about shareholder activism. It's your money. And if the management is not doing enough, you are losing on your investment, isn't it? So if you move to the public sector, how come we as shareholders of South Africa company don't care when our investments are going to waste? What happened to that activism, which was there? We fought and died for human rights. But today we seem to, we will stay at home and not vote. But failing to exercise that power means we are further and further getting into a human rights mess.
One would call it a dereliction of duty when you do this, because you are outsourcing. And I always say to people that if you did not vote, please don't complain, because you have not, the notion that it does not help does not help. And the latest results have shown us that it's so important for people to use this tool in their hands. And if they use it well, it means it can bring in visible results.
But now the people, they'll say, but we've been voting. In 1994, we gave the age 67% and 57%. Things have been getting worse and worse. So what is the point of voting? So maybe there's something which we also need to tweak a little bit. And I still believe that is impunity. When human beings keep on knocking and nothing happens, they tend to walk away. And maybe the tragedy of this country, as far as human rights are concerned, we have stopped caring about human rights, except where it affects us. And therefore, we don't even see Parliament. I mean, look at the mess in Parliament. And I get sad when I see members of Parliament behaving like children in Parliament with our money, swearing, insulting each other. And I say to myself, have these people forgotten why they are there? Political parties must be fighting and arguing on how best to advance this country and advance human rights, not silly things we see in Parliament. So as a result, when people are watching Parliament, they just don't give a damn anymore. Are these people are representing us? It's worse now when you watch Madlanga and the other committee. Say, damn. So there's other people who have been protected, were supposed to be
And we're
protected.
paying them quite.
So why do we care? The other thing is this, community policing. The Police Act says every police station must have community policing, where the community is involved in helping the police to do their work. How many community police forums exist in this country? It's a tick box. The report says we've got a community policing forum at every police station. Interesting. How many people know about those issues? And how many people are involved in ensuring that policing is effective? How do buildings get hijacked in Joburg while we're all there? What happened to the tuck shops? What happened to that study? Has anybody been arrested? Do we care? No. So it means if we talk about human rights, we need to go back to the drawing board ourselves as a South African. I'm purposely, intentionally talking about us as a people, because without us, the Human Rights Commission cannot get better. We'll keep on appointing people who won't take us anywhere. We'll keep on appointing ministers who don't provide water. We'll keep on appointing ministers who don't care about health. We'll appoint ministers who allow our borders to be porous and nothing happens. Home Affairs officials can just go and sell our IDs. The police can take bribes. The teachers are bribed. We lower our pass rate to 30% to appear good, and the show goes on.
Yeah.
So we are basically seeing the signs of a dying society.
But we are not
failing state.
Okay, that's what I was going to.
Yeah.
Are we or getting there?
We're moving that direction.
Unless
we make a U-turn. Yeah, the stats are very clear.
Well, other people argue that there are, we've got ingredients that points that we are already a failing state. Others argue.
We are a failing state, but we have not failed. Fail means total collapse. It's kind of like Mexico, where the president has to run away from the gangs.
Yeah.
But if we're not careful, because you become a failing state when the people who are the anchors of the society don't care anymore.
Well, I must, in fact, thank you, Advocate Tseliso. And you at home, you have been listening to us. If you're the leader, if you're in government, and people out there don't have water, people out there are dying because of a collapsed health system, it's important for you to be aware that people's patience, it's not just a clear, open checkbook, that you have a responsibility, you have a duty. What we were talking about, the emphasis that Advocate Tseliso spoke about at length, dealing with impunity, where officials, where government servants don't just care, but you at home, you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility. I think it was a former President Mandela who said, it is in your hands. And it is in your hands. It means in the next coming few months, we'll be voting. It means you need to vote correctly. You need to vote properly, because you're having the government that you're having because of what you did or what you did not do. The notion that I will not vote because nothing happens. In fact, you are in fact continuing the road. You are in fact contributing to the corruption, because you are abdicating your social responsibility. As a citizen of this country, it is in your hands. You have a duty to vote. You have a duty to hold duty bearers to account, to say to them that my vote is not just an open checkbook that you can write any amount that you have. You are my servant and you need to serve me, not the other way around. Hope you have enjoyed this conversation as we're steering this pot together with Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane. Once again, join me in thanking him and say, Advocate, a friend of this show, we want to thank you again and hope that we will continue this conversation, because these conversations are important as they speak to the heart of what we are in South Africa, a country that respected human rights, that it was known throughout the world as a human right. What had happened? Where did we go wrong? Where did the wheels fall off? Thank you.
This is Tea with Botha.